Hi everyone, how are you? Welcome to this video and welcome to my channel from wherever you're watching. It's great to have you here. This is the next video in, let's call it the welcome series. A little bit of a get to know me and get to know what I'm all about. This one is about how I got here and what I'm bringing to the table for you. And I guess a working title we want to call this is How I Met Michael. How I Met Michael. Now, I know I'm not the only person who works with Archangel Michael, and Archangel Michael is here for everybody. We can all tap into his energy. We can all ask for support and guidance. So, I'm not alone in what I'm offering here, but I wanted to give you a bit of a backstory. Now, I've had a really successful career. I've had a really successful life and been really lucky in my career. I've worked for some really big brands and I've done amazing things. And then I became a naturopath and I built a thriving practice. And, I did all that as a solo mum with 2 boys. I've had the honor of helping people with their health. I've had the absolute honor of helping practitioners build their practices and their businesses. I've had a really blessed run and I'm so grateful for it. But what I can say across my entire life, I always felt like, not like something was missing, but more like I was hiding something. I never felt fully embodied as myself because I was always having to hide part of myself. I felt like I had to hide. I realize now I don't have to, but I wasn't accessing my full potential. I wasn't using all of the gifts that I have. And in some ways, I didn't even know how to bring these things together. And this is what this channel's all about, bringing this all together. But I pushed those things away because I wanted to be professional. I wanted to be credible. I wanted to be reputable. So I was very careful about what I shared and what I didn't. But what I realized was that actually is so draining because you are hiding a piece of yourself and a really main piece of yourself. I was hiding it because I was worried about my professional career and how that would look. I was worried about how friends and family would react because I've come from a very strict Christian traditional upbringing, and this doesn't really fit very well. So it's been something that I always pushed aside. And I know for so many of you, when I talk to you, you've had a similar experience. You've had that feeling of wanting to do something in this realm and being, you've got the niggle and the pull to do it, but feeling like you can't, feeling like you might be judged, feeling like you just can't step into it, even though you really want to. And I want this to be your permission. Because you've got this lifetime right now. We're here for a reason. We've all made soul contracts to be here for this process. And part of that process is the gifts we bring to the table. So if we aren't fully embodying everything that we have, we're not fulfilling our purpose. We're not fulfilling our soul mission, are we? So I want to talk to you about how these things sort of came together. And there's a few really interesting things that happened along the way. I remember one of the first things I remembered from when I was young, and I must have been 7, maybe 8. I think they're saying 7. They're saying I was 7. And at the time I was quite afraid by what happened. But I remember very, very vividly, and I can still see it completely in my mind's eye today. Nighttime, I'm in bed, and at the end of my bed, there is a white horse with someone on its back with a sword, and there was wings. At the time, as a child, I thought it was a winged horse. I realize now it wasn't a winged horse. It was an archangel. The angel had the wings and the angel was on the horse. But at 7 years old, I thought I was seeing a winged horse with somebody on its back. I was quite afraid of this because it was very real. It was as real as someone else, like my parents standing at the end of my bed. And I remember raising this with my mum. And my mum was the only one I ever told about this. And but she was very, very strictly Christian, and none of this really gelled very well with her. And I was told to keep it secret, don't tell anyone. And I had a really interesting experience with a pastor a few years later, and I'll share that with you later on. But that was the first memory I had of what turned out to be Archangel Michael. At the time, I didn't realize who it was or what it was. It's only been over the years of putting pieces together and getting confirmation going, yes, that was, yes, that was. So that was the first instance of that. Then we moved through, and there has been other, smaller instances along the way. I had 2 very traumatic births and had some real trauma from those and nearly didn't make it through the first birth. And I do recall having those sort of experiences through those, and I'll share those another way. I don't want to take this video down there. But I wanted to share with you what came to be. So probably 10 years ago now, when I decided to really start to step into this a bit more, and I want it to be something that I felt like I had more control over. It was coming randomly. It was coming when I didn't want it to come. I wanted to have, feel that I was in somewhat control of what was happening. So I was doing some work at the time, trying to understand who my guides were. Who are my guides right now? Who are they? And at the time, I was shown a few people, and I'll share them all with you in time. But today we'll just talk about Archangel Michael. When I was shown my guides the first time, I was shown a group of my current guides, my current guide team. And sorry, I'm getting over a cold. I was shown my current guide team. And it was strange because I was sort of hunching and hiding a little bit, some of them. There was a woman at the front, and she had a shroud, and she was sort of pulling it over her face and hiding to the side. And behind her was someone that presented as male. I could see the sort of, taller, male-looking persona, and I could see the top of wings. And there were others there, and I'll describe them all to you in good time, but I saw the wings. And I thought, an angel. An angel's on my guide team. And I thought, okay, I suppose a lot of people have angels. We call them, we all think we have guardian angels. I didn't realize I had a real angel on my spirit team. And that's when I heard the words in my head. And what I heard was, you know who I am. You know my name. And I thought, Michael? And in that moment, the vision turned and looked at me, and he actually said, hello, sister. Hello, sister. And at the time, I thought, no, I'm just little Miss Average. Why would a nobody like me have an archangel for a guide? No, not accepting it. And it was really quite funny because I think, no, that can't be right. Me? No, not me. No, I'm not going to have an archangel for a guide, no. And I kind of dismissed it. Actually, I really did dismiss it. And I kept, doing my meditations, doing my work, going, here's my guides. And he's always standing there like, hello. And I'm like, thank you. I'm grateful to have an angel, but I'd really like to know who you are. And he'd go, you know who I am. You know who I am. And what was really funny was around this same time, I went into one of his New Age stores. I was on holidays, and I went into the New Age store, where you buy crystals and cards and things. And I walk into the front door of the store, and on the very back wall is all their oracle cards and decks and things. So I'm nowhere near that. I walk in the front door, and as I walk in the front door, a card comes flying off the very back shelf, hits me flat in the chest, and falls down on the ground right in front of my feet, face up. And it's an Archangel Michael card. Archangel Michael card. And the woman who was in the shop, the owner of the shop, was looking like her eyes nearly fell out of her head. She's like, how on earth did that get all the way from there to you? And I just giggled, and I'm like, okay. And I stood there and I said, okay, I get you. I accept who's there. What was even funnier, beforehand, before I walked into that shop, that day I'd been driving, 2 things happened. I was pulled up behind a car at lights. I wasn't parked at traffic lights. And the number plate said Michael. And I thought, funny. Yep, you're being really funny right now. I still didn't believe it was Archangel Michael. And then I've turned the corner from this car, and I kid you not, this van was all decked out, wrapped with all the signage. And it said, Angel Cleaning Company, call Michael, and it had a phone number. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you are kidding me. This is getting ridiculous. And then I walk into the crystal shop, and the card fully hits me in the middle of the chest. And that's when I stood there and I laughed out loud. I was like, right, I accept Thank you for being one of my guides. I get it. What I've since come to realize too is we can call in the angels. We can have them as guides whenever we need. I do realize now from my childhood that he was a guide from my childhood, and that has always been there for various reasons that I'll explain and explore as we move through the channel. But I wanted to show you the really interesting serendipitous things that happened to point out to me who my guides were at that point in time. And yes, some really interesting things came up that I'll share with you again soon. What I think is really key about it is trusting in what we know, trusting in the intuition, trusting in the vibes, trusting in those niggles, because I knew who that was. I knew the name, and I just failed to believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I wasn't good enough. But what I know now is we're all good enough. The angels are all here to help all of us in whatever way we need. We just have to ask. So I think what I'm meant to be here is, I'm not supposed to be just a naturopath. I'm not supposed to be just a business strategist. I'm supposed to be a bridge. I'm supposed to be a bridge between all of these worlds, the spiritual, the strategic, between who you are and who you're meant to be, between what you do now and what your life mission is. I'm supposed to be a bridge. So as I've become more accepting of who my guides were, and then I got more accepting of the communications that were coming, the clearer the communications became. And Archangel Michael really was one that stepped in to really help me find the courage to move forward and to step into this zone. And interestingly, a number of you who know me in my other realms know that in May I had major surgery to remove pelvic mesh, and I do want to talk on that at times as well. But I had major surgery in May. And for the first few days, 2-3 days after coming out of the surgery, I was not very well, and was a bit touch and go for a bit there. I wasn't sure how well this was going to turn out. Second day, I actually made one of the nurses write a list of things to give my husband. I am married again now, but to give my husband, because I wasn't sure I was going to make it. In those few days where I was still a little bit out of it, and in between, being knocked out and being fully conscious, very interesting thing happened. I wake up in the room after my surgery. So I was under general anesthetic for 7.5 hours for this surgery. It was a really big surgery. And I do remember waking up in recovery, briefly talking to the surgeon, don't remember what we said. And then I remember waking up in the room later that night. And as I'm sort of opening my eyes, I can feel that someone's sitting on the bed near my left foot. I could feel that sort of weight and that depression. And then I've got my hands sort of across my stomach, together like this across my stomach. And I could feel that there was a hand on my arm here. And then I realized I could feel a hand in my clasped hands as well. And I'm thinking, in my head, I know it's really late at night. My surgery didn't finish till 9 o'clock or something at night. So this must have been 10:30 at night. I'm thinking visiting hours are over, who's here? And I open my eyes, and in that phase of, I'm not knocked out, but I'm not fully conscious, and I've got that really soft awareness where you are seeing beyond. Holding onto my arm, sitting on this side of the bed, was my mum. And my mum passed away in 2020, and she actually passed away on my birthday, of all things. But she was there holding onto my arm. She had one hand on my arm, and she was sitting there. Sitting on the edge of my bed, the person I felt in that depression I felt. And then I realized I could feel someone with their hand on my shin, on my left shin. And I look down there and I see my grandmother. And my grandmother passed away when I was 21. I've just turned 49. So she passed away a long time ago. And she was sitting at the end of the bed with a hand on my leg. And I'm thinking, okay, I can still feel this hand holding mine. And I could feel someone, on the right-hand side holding my hand. And I look to the right-hand side, and it's Archangel Michael, and he's got a hand in mine, and he's standing there, and I could just feel this energy of strength, just this strength, because I felt so weak at that point in time. And I saw the three of them for the most part of the next 2 days, a little bit of a third day. And then I think by then I'd sort of, come back into my 3D reality vision and it was gone. But it's really interesting to me to know that, those archangels really are there. When we say they're there for us at the times when we need them, they really are. Archangels or angels, they're there. And I just wanted to share that story with you of what I experienced. Michael's just saying he also wants to point out something I didn't say in the welcome video, that he has been teaching me new versions of healing, some different, I don't even know how to explain it yet, but he does want me to start sharing that on this channel as well, which is great. And a version, I guess, best way to explain it is light language. He says it's not really light language, but he wants me to be sharing that as well. So that will be coming through here on this channel. So it's really interesting how all of this comes together. And I just wanted to share in this video some of my history, just so you understand a little bit of where I'm coming from and the things that I've experienced. And maybe there's things that you can relate to as well. If there is, I'd love to know. But thank you for watching this video, and thank you for being part of this channel and the community that we are building here. And I look forward to taking the journey with you. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.